there's been a free speech victory in Texas that slipped through the cracks on me. This is from September 16th. Today's the 20th, right?
Yep.
So that's 4 days ago. Today's what?
21st.
Today's the 21st?
That's right, sir.
Today's the 21st day. So 4 days ago. So that's 5 days ago. So that was like last Friday, was that? Was that last Friday this guy tweets it out? That's why, because it was done on a Friday. And if you want to bury a news story, you announce it on a Friday. That's why I didn't hear it. He said, this is the Attorney General from Texas. Now, they're being, well, here's what he said. I just secured a massive victory for the Constitution and free speech in federal court. Big tech cannot censor the political voices of any Texan. Why? Because according to this, the Fifth Circuit Court rejects the idea that corporations have a freewheeling First Amendment right to censor what people say. So he links to this thing. So this is from the court. This is the United States Court of Appeals for the Fifth Circuit, filed September 16th. Lyle W. Clance, that's the clerk. I bet he's going to be thrilled we announced his name. Ken Paxton, in his official capacity, Attorney General of Texas, versus Net Choice LLC, District of Columbia Organizing, doing business as Net Choice. So down here, it says a Texas statute named House Bill 20 generally prohibits large social media platforms from censoring speech. Can you look up a news article related to this story?
Mm-hmm.
Did you find one yet? Let's find one. A Texas statute named House Bill 20 generally prohibits large social media platforms from censoring speech based on the viewpoints of its speaker. The platforms urge us, so they're saying social media like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, they are urging us, I'm guessing the Attorney General, to hold that the statute is facially unconstitutional and hence cannot be applied to anyone at any time and under any circumstances. So, here's one more. In urging such sweeping relief, the platforms offer, I'm guessing that again, social media platforms offer a rather odd inversion of the First Amendment. That amendment, of course, protects every person's right to the freedom of speech. But the platforms argue that buried somewhere in the person's enumerated right to free speech lies a corporation's unenumerated right to muzzle speech. So it goes on. I'll read you a little bit more. This is interesting. The implications of the platform's argument. So they're saying what the platform is arguing are staggering. On the platform's view, email providers, mobile phone companies, and banks could cancel the accounts of anyone who sends an email, makes a phone call, or spends money in support of a disfavored political party candidate or business. So what are they talking about? So I'm gonna show this in the next segment, but real quick, PayPal, you know how they shut down people they don't like their speech, like that African news service because they were rude to the Secretary of Press for Biden. Now they're doing it again. They shut down Free Speech Union. They just pull the rug out from underneath them, and that's because they don't agree with their speech. And what they're saying here is that the platforms themselves are arguing that they should be able to do that. And that means that a telephone company could just yank your telephone service if it doesn't like what you're saying on their telephone lines. Or an email service could just yank your email if they don't like what you're saying. And they're saying here, this court is saying, no, that's crazy. That isn't the implications of the platform's argument are staggering. And they're saying that what's worse, the platforms argue that a business can acquire a dominant market position by holding itself out as open to everyone, as Twitter did and championed itself as the free speech wing of the free speech party. Then, having cemented itself as the monopolist of the modern public square, Twitter unapologetically argues that it could turn around and ban all pro-LGBT speech for no other reason than its employees want to pick on members of that community. Today, we reject the idea that corporations have a freewheeling First Amendment right to censor what people say because the district court held otherwise. We reverse its injunction and remand for further proceedings. So, what did you find anything?
Yeah, just the same thing that you're having here.
What did you find?
So my title here, it's from TexasTribune.org. It says Texas social media censorship laws go into effect after federal court lifts the block. The ruling Friday from the 5th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals likely means the case, which could have wide implications on online speech, will go before the U.S. Supreme Court again.
So it's going to the Supreme Court. So that's nuts. So that's exactly right. So now PayPal, it happened, not only PayPal, I'll show you, this is going to, again, it's the next segment. They also, they did it to a group of people called Gays Against, I don't know if I could even say that word, but the word is groomers. And Venmo has taken away their ability to raise money. So this is so now isn't this the equivalent of you have to make me a gay cake? So now, if a corporation disagrees with your politics, they don't have to serve you. I thought we already went through this with the gay cake. You have to serve them. I thought this was already settled. So why does PayPal and Venmo and anybody else get to just muzzle you, take out your, just shut down, or a bank, shut down your accounts if they don't agree with your politics? Because that's happening. And so according to the Fifth Circuit Court in Texas, you can't do that. So we'll see. Now it's going to go to the Supreme Court. We'll see. You know what's even weirder is that I was in a comedy club last night and I saw a comedian refer to, one of the, or he goes, I don't care if you're a liberal something, or if, say, you're a conservative free speech advocate. And I turned to my buddy, comedian sitting next to me, who's a big lefty, and I go, did you know that free speech is now a right-wing issue? Because that's what can you believe that now? Because people who vote Democrat, that's not left, think that censorship's okay to protect people's feelings. They never get believed in. So if you're going to give up freedom of speech because it hurts someone's feelings, then it's not a value. Because a value is something you stick by even when it's tough, even when it hurts someone's feelings. So if, as Jon Stewart pointed out, if you don't stick by your values when it's hard to do it, then they're not values. They're just hobbies that you do when it's easy. They're hobbies. So isn't that, Jackson, what do you have to say? I didn't hear about this. Well, now because it's going on to the Supreme Court. Maybe that's why. Go ahead.
I didn't hear about this either. It's pretty crazy, though. I don't understand how anyone could argue that a social media platform, a private business, is supposedly supposed to have more free speech than average Americans. Like, how is that the case that a private company has more free speech than America? It just doesn't make sense to me. And yeah, you're 100% right regarding the fact that this has become somehow synonymous with right wing. Anna Kasparian did a segment about me today where she was saying that it's not left, it's not communist, socialist, whatever, to believe in free speech on social media. When did that become a right wing thing? It should be, if anything, a left wing thing to support free speech. I mean, we all know that, in countries all across the world today that have socialist governments, they allow for free speech. But you look back at Nazi Germany and it was just the exact opposite. You didn't have free speech. So right wingers are the ones who historically have opposed free speech. But now today it's the Democratic Party that opposes free speech, and they're the ones going before Congress and advocating that social media companies shut down free speech. But I guess my question regarding this would be, what are they going to do surrounding speech that they feel like is going to get them into legal jeopardy? Like if someone is doing violent speech on their platform, because I get we have laws on the books to deal with slander and or like violent threats and stuff like that. But the question is, do they allow it on their platforms and then prosecute people based upon violent threats that are being made, as free speech laws and First Amendment laws currently dictate? Or are they still going to censor people based on perceived notions of violent threats, because that's subjective too. You were called violent for saying that
That's
we
right.
should force Medicare for all.
I had a sitting congresswoman say that my words were actual violence, not metaphorically, actual literal violence. And you know what I say to those people is, okay, well, you can stab me with an adjective, and then I'll hit you with a baseball bat, and you tell me which one is violence. So
yeah, I don't know what they're going to do with that.
So
what do you think they're going to do?
Well, I don't. So here's the deal: the way Facebook and Twitter, all social media, they look at themselves as not publishers, right? Because if someone publishes a book and in that book is slander, and you can legally prove someone slandered you in that book, you can now sue that publisher because that publisher is liable for printing that. But now a bookstore, you can't sue because the law is different with a bookstore. You sue the publisher, you don't sue the bookstore, right? You can't sue a bookstore for selling a book that has slander in it. That's not the bookstore's job. That's the publisher's job, right? To make sure that there isn't any slander in it. So you can't sue. So that's what Facebook and Twitter and Instagram are making themselves out to be, that they're like a bookstore. We're not really publishers, but they are publishers because now they're going in and they're censoring lines out of books. So if you're doing that, that makes you a publisher. And if you're censoring certain books that are published, then so they actually are. So now that's why they have that. There's that. What is that called? Section 220 or so. They have a carve out to be able to do this shit and be also considered still a bookstore. Mm-hmm. And that's garbage. So that's why, and so here, it goes on a little bit more now. It says the First Amendment protects speech. It generally prevents the government from interfering with people's speech or forcing them to speak. The platforms, the social media platforms, argue that because they host and transmit speech, the First Amendment also gives them an unqualified license to invalidate laws that hinder them from censoring speech they don't like. So he's saying that so what this is saying is that the social media companies are claiming it's their First Amendment free speech rights to censor. Is that how you read that, Jackson? That's how I read that.
Yeah. They're putting themselves above our free speech.
That's right. So their free speech supersedes our individual citizens' right to free speech. But we reject the platform's attempt to extract a freewheeling censorship right from the Constitution's free speech guarantee. The platforms are not newspapers. Their censorship is not speech. So I guess the platforms are saying, well, like a newspaper, we get to edit it. No, you're not a newspaper. This is exactly right. You can
sue a newspaper.
That's right. You can sue a newspaper. I can't sue you. They're not entitled to pre-enforcement facial relief. I don't know what that means, facial relief. Look that up. What is facial relief? And House Bill 20 is constitutional because it neither compels nor obstructs the platform's own free speech in any way. The district court erred in concluding otherwise and abused its discretion by issuing a preliminary injunction. The preliminary injunction is vacated, and this case is remanded for further proceedings consistent with this opinion. So, tip of the hat to Texas, that judge, Fifth Circuit Court, for doing this. And free speech is supposed to be a lefty issue. Free speech. So what happened was, Jackson, when Trump got elected, all the people who considered themselves, all the Biden voters, all the Democrats, and everybody in the media, they then, to oppose Trump, they then embrace the establishment, which they're supposed to be anti-establishment. But in order to fight Trump, to oppose him, they thought it was revolutionary or against the establishment to embrace the establishment, meaning how they embraced the FBI, meaning how they embraced Mueller, meaning how they embraced the Democratic Party, meaning how they embraced the CIA, meaning how they embraced the media, corporate media. And they did that. They saw that as a signal of, I'm opposing Trump and fascism. No, you are embracing fascism to oppose a game show host. And so that's why free speech now became the purview, or became a right-wing issue, because the left wing gave it up on purpose because they wanted to be able to censor Trumpers.
Yeah. Yeah. And also, I mean, the internet, social media is the biggest weapon of all in the propaganda information war. And when less and less people are watching cable news, and you have these mainstream media, legacy media companies that are having to engage and try to vie for competition with individuals like yourself and me on the internet, on social media, and they recognize that they can't do that without boosting the algorithm for themselves, well, they're going to go to every single extent imaginable to try and protect their image, shut anyone down who's competitive and speaking the truth, and boosting themselves. And you know what I always say is they only censor what's true. Not only what's true, but mostly what's true. There's a reason why you can talk about something as delusional as flat earth conspiracy theories on YouTube and not get censored. But if you talk about, the wrong things regarding COVID or the war in Ukraine, then you immediately find yourself without a YouTube channel or without a Twitter account because you're speaking the truth.
Well, what I try to remind people is that Edward Snowden is not in Russia for lying. Julian Assange is not being tortured to death for lying. Those people are in trouble because they told the truth. That's what gets you in real trouble, is if you tell the truth. That's why they call me a conspiracy theorist on Wikipedia, because I told the truth about Syria, and they still have CNN's quotes in there calling me a conspiracy theorist, and they won't correct it because Wikipedia is in bed with the intelligence community in the Western, NATO, UK, and the CIA and the FBI. That's who's running Wikipedia, and that's why it sucks. Virginia Beach, Richmond, Arlington, San Jose, Miami, West Palm Beach. Go to jimmydorecomedy.com for a link for all the tickets and become a premium member while you're there.